My name is Commander Arya Blake, U.S. Navy, Flight Lead. And this morning my father still thought I was tightening bolts in some hangar. We were at his kitchen table, coffee and bacon in the air, sun cutting through the blinds. He told an old Marine buddy I probably spent my days swapping spark plugs and pushing tool carts. They laughed like it was the joke of the week. I didn't correct him. I buttered my toast and let the static hang. He didn't notice the patches on my duffel by the door, or the calluses that don't come from a wrench. He didn't ask why I was home. Didn't wonder if there was more to this visit than breakfast. There was. In a few hours I'd strap into the lead jet of one of the most famous flight teams on Earth. The Blue Angels were headlining the city air show and I was flying point, the tip of the diamond. At 1400 I'd rip over his head at 600 knots with white smoke carving the sky. He wouldn't be able to miss it. And when the announcer said my name it wouldn't be a punchline anymore. I grew up in a house lined with medals, dress blue photos and perfectly folded flags. My father, Frank Blake, lived like every day was inspection. Shoulders back, jaw set, eyes scanning for weakness. He wasn't cruel. He was categorical. In his world you were either built for the fight or made for the sidelines. From the start he decided where I belonged. I was the piano lessons kid, sent inside when backyard tackle football broke out. My brother Cole cleaned rifles with Dad in the garage. I was told to help Janet, my mom, in the kitchen. On camping trips he woke Cole for dawn fishing and left me in my sleeping bag, telling Mom I wouldn't like the cold. If I joined their push-up contests he'd smile like it was cute and say my soft hands were better suited to a keyboard than a rifle. By middle school I stopped asking. I'd play Chopin in the living room while Dad and Cole tossed a ball in the yard, laughter drifting through the open windows. Even then some part of me still wanted his nod. That want sharpened the day I brought home a brochure. I'd been accepted to a Naval Academy STEM summer. I was glowing. He barely glanced at it. Only thing you should be flying is under the radar. At a music school. When the actual academy acceptance letter came, thick envelope the kind you keep forever, I rushed inside. Mom smiled. Dad squinted and asked if I was serious. Don't expect me at graduation if you quit halfway, he said. He kept the graduation part. 4 years later when they pinned on my gold wings his chair was empty. I texted a photo. The reply was silence. That became the pattern. First carrier landing, first overseas deployment, leading my squadron through a complex training cycle. At best I got stay safe. At worst a shrug about how they let women fly now. I brought home a framed photo signed by my pilots. Best damn stick I've flown with, sir, and watched him slide it into a drawer. It wasn't anger that stung. It was indifference. So I stopped trying to convince him. I just kept flying. I learned to keep my wins quiet and celebrate with the few who actually cared. Still, part of me wondered if anything would ever make my father see me different. Not the kid at the piano while the real action happened outside, but someone who could stand shoulder to shoulder with any Marine, any sailor, any pilot. If the answer existed, it was going to come from the sky. Flight school stripped you to the bone and rebuilt what was left. Dawn briefs. Endless checklists. Instructors who saw mistakes before you made them. I learned to fly and weather that 8 horizons, to trust instruments when the world went gray, to breathe through the alarms screaming in my headset. It wasn't glamorous. It was sweat pooling under a helmet and forearms aching after hours of fighting the jet. The first time the GS blurred my vision I rode the edge of blackout, heard my instructor cut through the fog. Recover. Again. The next time I held it, breathing on cadence, squeezing on the pull, staying present through the turn. Every milestone felt like pushing through a wall he'd mortared into my head. The one labeled "You can't." Night traps on the carrier tested every nerve I owned. The Deca postage stamp on black water, alive and moving in ways that only made sense when the hook finally caught steel. Emergency procedures were their own beast. Hydraulic failures, fire drills, single-engine approaches. I learned to manage panic when smoke crawled the canopy and visibility dropped to nothing. No one cared that I was one of the few women in the squadron. They cared if I could fly the mission. The first time I was tapped to lead a rough weather training hop. Winds brutal, viz scraping minimums. I brought every jet home without a scratch. The debrief ended with my CO giving me a single rare nod. That night I almost called my father. Phone in my hand, his old line came back. Music school, not a jet, and I set it down. I didn't need him to believe in me. The sky did. My peers did. And the aircraft only asked one question. Can you fly? I could. When the new Blue Angels schedule dropped, I skimmed the cities like always, expect nothing, keep moving until I saw it. Seattle. My hometown. His backyard. I stared at the page the way you stare at a winning ticket before you let yourself believe. This was the stage, not for revenge but for truth. I was slated to fly lead in the Diamond that weekend, the position nobody misses. For jets so close you could read each other's rivets, carving the sky in perfect sync. I pictured my father in the crowd, arms crossed, that skeptical proud squint reserved for real pilots. He had no idea the pilot he'd be watching was his daughter. I ordered 2 VIP passes through the festival committee. No return address, no note. Best seats in the house, access to the reception. I could already see it. My mother's curiosity, my father's reluctance, then his inability to resist. The Blues had always been the real deal in his eyes. All week I caught myself daydreaming about his face when the announcer said my name. Shock? A laugh at first, thinking it was a coincidence? Or a split second where he finally realized how badly he'd underestimated me. Either way, I kept the excitement under layers of calm. I told no one outside the team. The plan was simple. Let engines, precision and sky do the talking. At 600 knots over the VIP tent, he wouldn't just see a jet. He would see me. Show morning, the tarmac smelled like jet fuel and cold dew. Hangar doors rolled high. Blue paint gleamed under floods, polished until the skins looked wet. Crew moved in a practice dance. Hydraulics checked, comms tested, fuel topped, smoke oil loaded. I walked the line with my crew chief, hand on metal, eyes on fasteners, edges, seams, touch confirming what the checklist already said. Bird 1 set, my chief called. Copy, I said, voice steady. Strap time in 5. Somewhere across town, my father was pouring coffee, studying a pair of tickets without names. In a few hours, the sky would answer questions I didn't need to ask. The APUs thrummed through my chest. Every sound felt sharper, every motion amplified by what was about to happen. I zipped my flight suit, felt the fabric stretch across my shoulders, locked my helmet case by my knee. Familiar weight. Grounding. Sunlight sparked along the leading edge of the wing, steel turned to blade. The PA voice floated over the field, warming up the crowd. Sponsors. Schedules. I glanced at the VIP tent. Frank stood there in sunglasses, one hand in his pocket, scanning the stands like he was on perimeter duty. He had no idea. My crew chief handed me my helmet. I nodded, slid it on. The seal closed and the world narrowed to comms and checklists. Breath steady. Oxygen. Harness. Locked. Canopy, down and latched. Across the line, tails twitched as engines spooled. From the cockpit I could still make out the tent through the canopy glare. Janet fanning herself, talking to the row behind her. Cole on his feet already, scanning the sky. My father looking downrange toward the runway, waiting for the show. I smiled under the visor. Today the sky can do the talking. Blue cleared for takeoff, Tower said. Right hand eased to throttle. Left settled on the stick. The rumble deepened into a roar you feel in your ribs. My heart didn't spike. It matched the rhythm I always find right before the wheels leave Earth. We taxied into position for jets in perfect symmetry. Heat shimmered off the glass. The signal came. Throttles forward. The world blurred. We lifted together and locked the Diamond, climbing over the bay. 4 jets, less than 3 feet between wingtips, white smoke tracing clean geometry across a bright Seattle sky. Sun flashed off our canopies with every micro tilt. The engine note rolled over the crowd, a sound you don't just hear, you absorb. Blue 1 on heading. 2. 3. 4. Comm radios. Sharp cadence. The city looked like a postcard, water-cut glass, sun low and generous. We came in from the west, lined up on the show line. The announcer's voice cracked over the speakers, clear and proud. Ladies and gentlemen, leading today's Blue Angels Diamond formation, Commander Aria Blake, United States Navy. I didn't need to see faces to feel the ripple. But through the glare I caught the tent. Cole braced, eyes up. My mother's hand to her chest. And my father, his phone on the grass by his shoes, forgotten. He squinted into the sun, trying to reconcile the pilot on point with the daughter he'd sidelined for years. For a heartbeat the noise fell away and all I saw was his face. We knifed the show line at 600 knots. Smoke rails bright in the light. Ready, brake. I eased back. Just pressed into my ribs, visor washing blue to silver, then level again, hands steady, breathing on cadence. Effortless from the ground. Years of work compressed into seconds in the cockpit. On the return, the tent slid into my periphery. He hadn't moved. He was still looking, really looking. Not at the uniform. Not at the aircraft. At me. I couldn't hear his voice over the engines. I didn't need to. For the first time he saw more than soft hands and piano keys. He saw the woman leading 3 jets with zero doubt. That was enough. We climbed out and banked for the next run. And a calm settled in my chest. This wasn't about proving him wrong anymore. The truth was flying over his head, louder than anything I could ever say. The reception tent hummed, glassware, low voices, that afterburner buzz of a crowd coming down from adrenaline. I walked in still in my flight suit, helmet tucked under my arm, sweat drying at the collar. Admirals, vets, reporters turned. A wave of applause rolled toward me. I scanned past it to the back of the room. Janet's eyes were wet, her smile unsteady. Cole grinned, gave a thumbs up. Frank stood with his hands in his pockets, looking at me like he was meeting me for the first time. No hard stare. No drift. Just locked on. The crowd parted without me asking. I stopped in front of him. No speeches. Just a quiet space. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a worn photo. The squadron picture I'd given him years ago, the one I thought he'd buried in a drawer. He held it out, hand steady. "Can you sign it?" he asked, voice low. The edges were soft from years of handling. I signed and added my title beneath. Commander Arya Blake, U.S. Navy, Blue Angels Flight Lead. He looked at the ink like it was something rare. No hug. No dramatic apology. But his eyes had changed, softer, open in a way I'd never seen. "I'm hanging this in the study," he said. "Where Cole's varsity photo used to be." I smiled. Warn him first. He chuckled, small but real. It was enough. We stood there a moment, letting the tense noise fill the gaps. For years I imagined this as a showdown or a monologue. It wasn't. It was quieter, more permanent. He finally saw me. That's all I'd ever really wanted. I never flew to prove my father wrong. I didn't muscle through storms and sleepless nights to force a confession of pride. I fly because the sky is the one place I'm fully myself. Up there, doubt drops away. The jet answers my hands. Air rushes past. For a few perfect seconds everything makes sense. Hearing my name over those loudspeakers wasn't about his approval. It was about honoring years of discipline, the love of the craft, the team that trusts me on the wing. Here's the truth. Some people won't see you until the evidence is too bright, too big, too loud to ignore. That's okay. Keep going anyway. Keep building, training, creating, whatever sets your blood humming. You don't have to slow down so they can catch up. One day your work will speak in a voice they can't talk over. Let your sky tell the story. Let it drown out the labels that tried to hold you back. And when that moment arrives, you won't need an apology. You'll already be miles ahead, doing the thing you were born to do.